Hello and a very warm welcome to this month's Pacecast. I'm Anita Pace. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is James Halls. Now, James has had a very successful career in corporate finance, but he's going to share his story with us today about how his career took a slightly unexpected turn and he went on a different path. I'm sure it's going to be a very inspirational story and I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. So thank you for joining us this morning, James, and welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Great to be here.
Now, every time we ask our guests to bring in something that's meaningful or important to them and explain why. So I do not know what you've brought in. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing all about it. So please share.
Okay, well, I've brought in a representation of our logo of the organisation that I founded, OSHI. The logo is a blue lotus flower.
That's pretty.
That's a 3D representation of our logo. But it's more than just a logo. It represents rebirth and it represents change. So if you think of the lotus flower, they grow in swamps. And when you think of the darkness of a swamp, it's an unknown. What's lurking beneath represents the past, but yet such a beautiful, intricate, delicate flower. Multi-layered with each individual petal representing different parts of our personality and our psyche. So I, like the lotus, feel like, this was a pivotal change in my life of chasing just material to kind of being reborn as a new person that had totally different priorities and focus. And so that's it. And that's also the OSHI logo.
And OSHI, and we're going to talk about OSHI later, but just very quickly explain what OSHI stands for, because it's an acronym for...
Yeah, so it's an acronym for the Open Source Healing Initiative, which essentially means anyone that wants to contribute towards something to do with healing is very welcome to, get in touch, work with us, contribute in some way. It also has a dual meaning, as OSHI is the Japanese word for friend that supports. And OSHI at its core is made up of people that have been through something and are using that experience to help another person.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about OSHI later. So let's dial it right back to the beginning then. So tell us about James as a young boy, and were there any influences at that early age that you can remember?
Yeah, certainly. I feel like as a human being, I feel like I transitioned from being a spiritual being, whether that is consciousness itself or some kind of entity that wasn't aware of itself, that was suddenly born into a human body. And as a child, I felt so out of place. I felt so alien. I felt so anxious, frightened, uncomfortable in my own skin. And from a very early age, I looked for ways to escape that feeling of dis-ease or discomfort in my body by looking for things externally. So, for example, playing computer games, watching the same film over and over again because it was predictable and safe and comfortable, living in here in a fantasy world that I can control, just not being present. I was overwhelmed by reality itself and I never knew that.
So did you struggle at school and with friendships?
I did, yeah, I did. I just never seemed to cotton on to what the other children were doing, whether it was an early interest in other people following a football team, whether it was, I don't know, I just felt out of place. So yeah, I did struggle to form ultra sensitive as well, hypersensitive.
And did you have siblings?
Yeah, 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister.
And I'm just curious, were they similar or were they different personalities?
No, totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, totally different. My brother was really into football. My sister's very independent, had lots of friends.
Right.
I really struggled as a child. So my biggest friend, I suppose, was, family members that really knew how to nurture that.
Were your parents quite supportive? Did they see you struggling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course they were. Every child's unique. I just really struggled to follow what was going on. And I lived in a fantasy world because I couldn't quite fathom what life meant. I used to ask early questions. What does this all mean?
So were you quite a curious child then, would you say?
Extremely.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
Extremely inquisitive. So I couldn't understand why even year on year the same syllabus would be taught again. And I really, really had questions about the meaning of life itself. At 5, 6 years old, I would look around the room and say, what is this? What does it mean?
So I'm just trying to visualise school then. So did teachers see you as a bit of a challenge, as in, oh, James is going to ask all these awkward questions? Or did they like your inquisitive nature?
Depends on the teacher. Some were very supportive and encouraging. One famously said, I was probably born in the wrong life, in the wrong era.
Really?
I would have been better philosophising somewhere, on an embankment, like philosophising the meaning of life rather than coming into school. I grew up in a real rough area as well.
So where was home?
It was a place in southeast London that at the time would have been probably one of the roughest places around. But I didn't know it was rough. It was home. It was home, yeah. It's only when I moved into a career and started mixing with other groups. But my home environment was safe, loving, nurturing, supportive. Okay. The teachers, I would point out that they were on the wrong, we weren't at that page, we weren't at that spot. So I could see what was going on, I just wasn't interested.
So despite that, did you do well at school, or did you academically, I mean?
Academically, I did average.
Right.
If we're moving into secondary school, again, was very absent indeed in terms of absent-minded. I was very poorly. I had very poor health. That meant I did miss a lot of school, and when I was there, I didn't fit in. It was quite a rough school, and everyone kind of picked groups, cliques. It was this football team or this gang, and I just never really fit in. I was an outsider, so academically, I average, I suppose. And
when you were in secondary school, did you have an idea of what you might want to do as a career at that stage?
Yeah, I did. I think for a time I wanted to be some kind of programmer. Didn't really understand what that involved. I think that was because I was really interested in computer games. I didn't really understand what programming was for a time. I had an early interest as well in corporate law. I wanted to be a lawyer. That was revealed. I did A-levels, did a lot better academically at A-levels once it was a sixth form and it was a lot more grown up. You were encouraged to do your own learning.
So you had the ability then, it was more about the interest.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Very, very high IQ.
Right, okay.
And it just academically, I wasn't interested. If I was given coursework, I just didn't do it. I wasn't really interested. I just felt like an outsider. It all seemed like an observation of myself. I kind of felt like a passenger watching it happen and didn't really see the relevance of it.
Right.
A-levels, I did a lot better.
Yeah.
And then, went into university to study law.
Oh, so you went down the law path then?
Yeah.
So, and where was uni? Did you stay in London or did you move away?
No, do you know what? I was at the University of Hull, and there's a really interesting synchronicity as to why I'm back here that we can pick up.
Yeah, for sure.
We can pick up now, we can pick up later.
Okay, let's talk about it. Yeah, so the Hull connection then.
Let's come back to the Hull connection.
All right, okay.
Let's come back to the Hull connection. So, I came up to uni in Hull, and this is where I had my first taste of alcohol. So I didn't start drinking when I was young. I picked up a drink at uni. I suddenly realised...
Which most people do.
Which most people do.
Yeah.
I suddenly went from being awkward, frightened, anxious, to realising I'm 6'2", I've got a deep voice, was intelligent enough to fit into anything I wanted, and I suddenly became popular. So I went from being awkward, anxious, uncomfortable to really stepping into my own skin.
When you had a drink, or?
When I had a drink, I think what happened is it gave me the freedom to suddenly feel like I had grown up. But even when I wasn't drinking, I was carving out a new animal, a new entity, a new person, a new character. But it wasn't me. It was just someone that finally felt like he could fit in. So I had my own group of friends. And yeah, I had no problem making friends. I had a girlfriend. And yeah, a lot more confident. But that character, I suppose, was the start of a new version of myself that wasn't.
But did you like the character? And were you enjoying uni? Was it a time of your life that you...
I did, yeah. I really enjoyed it. I suddenly felt like I fit in.
Yeah.
So I believe for the first time, I felt like I could be like one of the culturally accepted jocks, as it were, that you see growing up in popular culture in American films, and suddenly, I'm big and I'm popular and everything's going well. But that character
wasn't real.
I don't think it was real. No, it wasn't. But I enjoyed it because I finally felt like I belonged, and that's what I think, as most people do as human beings, crave connection and crave belonging. But it wasn't me.
So you graduated?
Yeah, graduated. I shifted off from a law degree very quickly.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did indeed. I had the sense.
Do you know how many people I know do that? They just set off to do law and they finish doing something else.
I think changed after about 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know. I did an IQ test at university that what I mentioned earlier with a high IQ, and it was revealed that I was dyslexic, dyspraxic, and dyscalculic, meaning numbers, orientation, and words were processed differently. So it wasn't a lack of intellect.
Interestingly, they didn't pick up on that through school there. I mean, you think they would at some point.
It was quite I'd say deprived area.
Yeah.
I think they had their hands full with some of the kids that likely had a very bad home life, and in an ideal world, that would be nice. But yeah, that wasn't. It was just called messy, lazy, called names, stereotypes. Of
they
not
pigeonholed you.
Yeah, they did. They did. So yeah, I realised that law was all about reading, and I can't hold concentration to read the precedents that was involved in law. So I switched over to business and financial management. Interesting.
You've got the numbers going. You're going to finance.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting, actually. Yeah, getting through that.
Yeah, but you obviously did very well because you went into finance as a career.
I did, and do you know what? From an inspirational and from an honesty point of view, because I suppose we are all influenced by the world outside of us, I just kind of assumed, I'll leave university and I'll just skip into a high flying career. It's just what people do. You know, why wouldn't I? And when I wasn't immediately rewarded with that, I became more and more determined to get an opportunity. But in doing so in not immediately opening doors and walking straight in as an investment banker at JP Morgan, for example, I was really disappointed. And after uni, I didn't just walk straight into a job. I did a couple of things. I worked in professional indemnity.
Was this back in London?
It was, yeah. I went back to London and... in not walking straight into a super duper graduate program, it forced me to become ambitious enough and curious enough to learn how to reach executives, to learn how to find out who do you speak to get a job. So in the beginning, I just got no's or ignored, but I became more and more creative and determined and resourced to get an opportunity. So in the end, I Googled, back in the days where Google gave you unlimited results, page 600 if you wanted, JP Morgan, Oxford University, a few keywords, and I found somebody else's CV that, was well established in the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it was. Yeah. And I used the template. So obviously I changed all of the content to my own, but just the professional template. And straight away I started getting more callbacks.
Interesting.
Again, I learned not to just send it to the general inbox. I started finding out, how can I figure out Anita's email? How can I figure that out? How do I get to speak straight to her, not just the generic inbox? So I started speaking to international managing directors, chief executives of banks. And I said, look, I'll come in for free. I'll come in and show you that I'm ambitious enough. And that led to my first opportunity.
And that was with?
That was with the Royal Bank of Scotland.
Right.
So that encompasses, at the time, probably the largest balance sheet in the world. A lot of these banks own so many other things that we don't realise. Yeah. NatWest, Royal Bank of Scotland, Coutts Bank. It's a big conglomerate. Yeah.
And you went in as a graduate trainee, that sort of thing? No,
just as kind of a junior. The role was called portfolio manager.
Right.
Going in, learning the ropes, and again, it was very quickly identified that my skill set was more geared towards building relationships, opening doors, rather than the credit stewardship, which is ensuring that the bank is acting in a sound way and managing the finances and doing monitoring covenants to make sure that a client can afford their debt, on multinational debt agreements and things. And my skill set was more in building relationships and forging new relationships and partnerships, which led me into a business development role as opposed to kind of behind the scenes chartered banker.
Yeah.
It was more in building relationships, but with that came a large element of social activity.
Because you'd have been, your clients would have been corporates. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there'd have been a lot of schmoozing in the city.
Yeah,
keeping them entertained.
Absolutely. I was very fortunate to have access to some extremely exclusive places that you can't just go and enjoy. I'm talking about private banks that have their own discreet dining facilities with butlers and matched wines. And, as a young man with a lot of ambition, that's still going back to that early feeling I told you, didn't feel like I fit in. So I'm still trying.
It's a bit of imposter syndrome, would you say?
Yeah, of course. And just, again, along as a passenger. So that feeling of dis-ease and discomfort, that void, was still not totally filled, despite now having alcohol, despite now having the company of an attractive woman, despite having financial success, despite having social status amongst my peers, there was still something missing.
And how old were you about this time?
I'd say early to mid-20s.
Right.
Yeah.
So as an outsider looking in, you had it all. You had the money, the success, the glamorous girlfriend. You were living in London, I guess, in an apartment somewhere. The big job, but inside you were perhaps a bit.
Yeah, I
lost.
I was lost.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I, looking back, it feels like I was searching for the answers at the bottom of another drink. I was introduced to cocaine at that time as well.
Right.
And alcohol and cocaine together were really a seductive thing. And again, I thought that was my thing, and I it wasn't openly endorsed, but at the same time in the city,
everybody knew it was going on.
Yes. It wasn't like now I'd be mortified to think someone might be under the influence of a cocktail of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just part of the experience.
So how long did this go on for then? This lifestyle,
I left banking in my mid to late 20s.
Oh, right, okay.
And then had a kind of consultancy-based practice, would take on clients ad hoc.
So why did you leave the bank then? The security of this big banking conglomerate?
I was losing grip, to be honest. I was losing...
Because of your addiction?
Yeah, I'd say addiction and getting more and more frustrated.
Right.
I had built up a passive income as well and realised that although I had a good income in the bank, it wasn't... I was struggling with the authority and the structure, combined with my own aspirations of freedom and searching for what was
missing.
What was missing, yeah. So I went on to run a string of ventures, successful ventures in all different fields, so events, consultancy, business
and these
development.
ventures, were these as you as a one-man band, or were you building an organisation where you employed people?
Yeah, one-man band,
right.
Really. Yeah, one-man band. Again, very much opening doors, connecting people, if you will. People that want to import something from somewhere, and then someone that wants to maybe sell it, kind of being the middleman there and consulting on that. My life just it didn't pass me by because I thought I was having a great time. But the real underlying message here is that I wasn't. I was getting deeper and deeper into addiction and really, really struggling.
And were you maintaining a healthy relationship still? Or
no, the relationships were really struggling. Family,
right.
friends,
yeah.
Romantic partner.
Yeah.
That was all really struggling. I think the turning point was it was unbeknown to me at the time, but I felt mortal. And for someone that's, regularly using alcohol, cocaine, feeling of mortality isn't something common. That mortality I was feeling turned out to be sepsis in my knee.
So how did that happen?
I think just not looking after myself,
So had you had an accident or something?
No, and it wasn't an open wound. It was just my knee started swelling up and I started feeling worse and worse. And then I lost all perspective. I lost all perspective. I was so unwell. And I ended up in hospital.
So I'm just curious. So your leg's starting to swell up. Did you ignore it for a while?
Yeah.
Thinking it was just go away?
Twisted my knee sleeping or something. Yeah, and it became more and more tender until it felt like it exploded inside and I couldn't put any weight on it. I ended up in hospital, extremely high fever.
And how old were you at this point, would you say?
I think 33.
Right, so still quite young.
Yeah. 33. Very, very poorly in hospital, like intensive care, screaming, in agony, confused. This is the point where there was a pivotal change because they didn't actually pick up the sepsis while I was in. I had my mother, sister and girlfriend all come and, fuss, over me. What's happened? Why is he screaming? And trying to advocate for me in the hospital because I wasn't making sense. I now understand toxic blood in the brain means that, who knows what you're experiencing. So it was misdiagnosed as alcohol withdrawal symptoms and drug-induced psychosis. But I wasn't drinking at the time. I wasn't taking any narcotics. And as such, it was misdiagnosed. So I was treated for one thing, left the hospital without ever getting proper treatment for sepsis. And that was left unchecked on and off for a period of about 6 months. In that 6 months, that was in 2018, it felt like I was drowning because the underlying infection never went away and it kept rearing up. I would go back to hospital.
So you weren't having any treatment at all?
For the sepsis, no. So I'd go in, I'd be treated for, depleted vitamins, and of course the addiction had played a massive part in me being run down enough to get this.
And while you were unwell with the sepsis, had you completely stopped the drink and the drugs?
No, I was in and out of that as well.
Right,
not really understanding what was happening. I was being told, you're alcohol dependent, but at the same time, even when I wasn't drinking, I was in all sorts of trouble. It was a really confusing, dark period of my life. But
sepsis is like serious. It's a wonder you survived.
Oh, the doctors would agree with that. I, on more than one occasion, went into multiple organ failure, and had my family come in literally called in to say goodbye.
Oh my God, I've gone off the shivers.
And it was extreme on one occasion. I remember the phrase, "We're going to make him comfortable. That's all we can do now." And this doctor had to get special permission to administer this sedative. He had to get special permission because by administering it, you could also inadvertently kill me by accident because my organs couldn't take anything.
Yeah.
I pulled out the cannulas and I ran. I ran from the hospital, made it about a mile before I collapsed.
Is this in your gown, your hospital gown? You're running down the street?
I'm running down the street. I made it about a mile, and my little mum that was there, 5'2.5", trying to keep up with me, 6'2.5", with my long legs, fighting for my life, was trying her best to chase after me, and she eventually caught up to me, collapsed.
God, how traumatic for her.
It's extreme, extreme.
And where were you running to?
Away. I just thought
to get her out of the hospital.
I thought to myself, they've told my family to say goodbye. I've gone into multiple organ failure, and they've said the only thing left to do is make him comfortable, and then administered this sedative. And I felt myself letting go. I felt peace washing over me. And I thought, oh dear, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do this. I don't want to die. I want the suffering to end, but I don't want to die. So I got out of there. I ran, and I ended up then in a coma after that.
So you collapsed in the street?
I collapsed in the street, yeah.
Obviously the ambulance comes and gets you, takes you back.
There were some off-duty doctors. It was just outside of a local country pub. Some off-duty doctors, as it was so close to the hospital.
The irony of you collapsing outside a pub.
This was, exactly.
God.
And so at this point, I had an incredible awareness of everything going on, but I couldn't move my body. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't speak. And I was put in kind of clamped and put in a brain MRI or something, CAT scan MRI, and I could hear everything, telling my family, really sorry, he's got brain damage. He's
your poor family.
in a coma. And I came out of that about 24 hours later. Still, that wasn't the end. I would still be discharged, a week later, 2 weeks later, back in hospital again, on and off. In the meantime, I went to, I'd been referred to some alcohol and drug services for support, and I could never engage with them. I was trying my best to engage with them, and by the time I'd have my appointment, I'd be back in intensive care, and then I'd be discharged.
But did you want to recover, though?
I wanted the suffering to end,
right?
But I didn't know any different because it had become a crutch.
Yeah,
it had become a crutch that I relied upon, and it was a catch-22. I didn't want the pain anymore. I didn't want the experience anymore. But at the same time, I didn't want to die. So I was trying to engage with services, and at the same time, I would never make my second appointment. So then I'd be discharged and put back to the start. So I'd never actually get anywhere. And I called the chief executive of an organisation called the Forward Trust, and I said, "Look, perhaps you should send someone to my funeral. I'm not long of this earth. It's just not working out." And that led to him staging an intervention.
What's the Forward Trust?
The Forward Trust is an incredible charity supporting people with addiction up and down the country.
Okay.
The gentleman is called Mike Trace, Chief Executive Officer there. We're still good friends to this day. That led to him, pulling some strings and got me into a rehab back in Hull.
There it is. There's the connection.
Yes, indeed. And I collapsed after a day.
In rehab,
and then went into Whole Royal Infirmary. And again, family were called up from London, and I didn't know this time, but they were told, look, you better come and see him. We're not really sure how this is going to go. And I finally met this incredible doctor that spoke to me with dignity, and she asked me about me as a human being. It wasn't just, it's him again.
Yeah.
Don't know what to do with him. And she took me at my word. I explained to her, look, my life changed 6 months ago when my knee swelled up. Yes, I had alcohol and cocaine issues, abuse issues, absolutely. But when my knee swelled up, my life changed. I've lost myself. I don't know what's happened. She took me at my word. She got all my previous results back, and she essentially said she can see that there was a drop off the cliff when I started having these, because I had results from a few months earlier. I can see you were an active drinker. But then a couple of months later, I can see total organ failure, which was the sepsis. And she's the one that says, look, it looks like you've had an underlying blood infection on and off for 6 months. X-rayed my leg, can see there's holes in the bone, all the way from the knee down to the ankle in the leg that caused me so much pain. Got treatment, left the hospital, straight back to rehab, and then...
So how long were you in hospital for a long time at that point?
A couple of weeks.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and made a remarkable recovery, partly due to my will and determination, and partly due to an incredible intervention at the right time, at the right treatment. And then I went into rehab, and
you wanted to recover at this point?
I did. I wasn't thrilled at the situation I found myself in. I was in a wheelchair at this point. I was going to bring a walking stick actually today as my object, because I had this dragon walking stick that a friend of my mum's had given to me, a little marble in its mouth. But yes, I was in a wheelchair. I had yellow skin. I was a dying man, and I was diagnosed with chronic liver disease, liver cirrhosis, maximum possible scoring on what's called a fibrosis test, which is how they test the level of scarring in the liver. So the breadth and depth of it had the maximum scarring. I've made a total recovery, reversed liver cirrhosis. When people say, oh, this is too late now, it's not actually, it's not true for everybody. You can heal your body.
Turn it back,
and I've done that.
So how long were you in rehab for?
Best part of a year.
Right.
And while I was there, I got to know myself, and I found the tools. There are tools to uncover a way to live in the moment, in the present moment, through meditation, through operating a program of spiritual principles, through listening to your conscience rather than, what you think you should do. Do what you feel is right. And
was this something you uncovered yourself, or were there people there to guide you?
Experts.
Yeah, right, okay.
Expert people. One counsellor there, Terry Marshall, is now the head of counselling for OSHI.
Okay.
And he was the head of counselling at the rehab at the time, and we've become great friends over the years. And so it was during this time at the rehab that my consultancy brain and entrepreneurial brain started ticking and realizing all the gaps that existed in the system that I fell through in every way possible over and over again. And then looking at how my family suffered tremendously at the stigma that's associated with alcohol and drug use on the front line, be it ambulance, be it hospital, statutory services, these kinds of things. And I thought, do you know what? There's a lot of easy wins there. If this were a client, I could massively improve their efficiency, humanity,
The whole experience.
Effectiveness across the board. And that's how I won a lot of business back in the bank. I would go and speak to a client and say, let me immerse myself in your organization. Let me see how your touch points are with your current bank. Let me see what the people on the ground experience on a day-to-day. Let me have a look at your accounts. Let me see how you do things. And then I'll go away and produce a report for you. And with that report, at the very least, you can use it as a leverage with your existing banker to perhaps up the game, and perhaps you'd come to us instead. So I had this idea for the NHS, and I approached my own doctor with these ideas.
Is this a doctor at Hull Royal Infirmary?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The one who identified the sepsis and...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Went in and during a routine appointment, I had blood tests weekly. I had scans constantly because of how poorly I was. I was adamant I was going to be discharged, and it was explained to me on that list, you're never discharged, but I am now.
Congratulations.
Totally discharged. Thank you very much. It's an incredible feeling to be reborn, much like the lotus we discussed.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'd love to come in and help. I'd love to get on the ward. I'd love to speak to people that are going through what I went through, because I would have alcohol detoxes while I was in, with the unbeknown sepsis diagnosis. I'd love to speak to people. And she helped make that happen. So when I left rehab, I went into the hospital as a volunteer and did some observational consultancy work, just looking at how the various organisations in there did things, how the doctors did things, nurses, porters, spoke to everyone to understand what really happens here on a day-to-day basis. And then I was so motivated to help that I kind of pitched some ideas, and they were approved as part of my time there. We very quickly realised the success of my methods, which were treating people as a peer, treating people as human beings, asking them how they got there, and asking what's going on in their life. And before you know it, we were collecting data. We were, the NHS collected data. I collected my own data. Before you know it, we'd done a year.
So you'd pitched this idea to the NHS?
Yeah, locally.
Locally, right,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And the clinical team and the alcohol care team, and
right.
And ended up just implementing it on the spot, on the fly.
And how were you funding this, or was it still all voluntary?
This was just me.
Right.
This was just me, with a can-do attitude. And we very quickly realised from the data we were collecting that the results were mind-bogglingly good. So in this industry, 5% success rate is considered good. We were achieving 50%.
Wow.
People that were maintaining abstinence, people that were getting into something we call recovery, recovery from something. In this case, it was alcohol dependence. 1,000% differential in success with someone with no real experience other than the most important experience.
Personal experience.
Which is personal experience. Yeah. Lived experience is a buzzword at the moment, but I call it lived expertise. Dave down the pub has some lived experience of maybe drinking and a bit too much, and whereas what I've been through is lived expertise. Yeah. And that research was presented nationally at a medical conference.
So did you go and present it?
Yes, it was during the wonderful years of unknown lockdowns and things with COVID. So it was done remotely to this conference, the British Association for the Study of the Liver, their annual medical conference.
Sounds like a blast.
Yeah, exactly. Presented these findings and our research that was co-authored by myself, the senior nurse, and 2 other doctors. And on the back of that, it was accepted and published in the British Medical Journal as an example of patient innovation. On the back of that, I realised that I couldn't relate to everybody, or they couldn't relate to me. either way, it meant that there was a barrier in achieving breakthroughs with people. It all comes from trust.
What do you mean you couldn't relate to them, or they couldn't relate to you? What do you mean by that?
So sometimes it might be gender, sometimes it might be personal experience, sometimes it might be religion, sometimes it could be life experience. So for example, I don't have any criminal justice experience, and I might be speaking to someone that's in and out of prison.
Right.
And I'm trying to say, look, just like you, I know what it's like to go through this. There's another way. And they're like, oh, how much time
do you know? Yeah, how do you know?
How much time have you spent in prison?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, no time.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know anything. And if they can't respect or relate to me, and I can't relate to their experiences, we can't build a rapport and we can't build real trust. And if they can't trust me, they can't take direction because they won't believe me when I show them, you know, that there is another way to live.
There's a way out, yeah.
And as such, I thought, wow, we're missing a trick here. Yeah, it's great me running around the hospital, but I'm one person, but one man. So I left the hospital and I founded OSHI.
And how did you find that? I mean, you gave up this high-flying career in London, the lifestyle and the success, and you've come to Hull, obviously very, very ill. You've come through that. And you're now going around volunteering in a hospital, sharing the wisdom of what you've been through. How are you funding your lifestyle?
Very generous friends and family,
right?
And a far more modest, far more modest lifestyle.
Yeah.
But what was missing in material wealth was hugely made up for by the richness of giving a piece of myself to others. I felt richer than I'd ever been.
And did you feel like that bit that was missing ever since that being that young boy was now being?
That's been a journey of awakening, spiritual awakening, in realizing I'm a spiritual being having a temporary human experience and availing myself of that wonderful gift, treasuring the moment, the now that we have right now. This is infinite. We're immortal in this moment. There is nothing else. There is no past. There is no future. There is now.
Just now, yeah.
And we're together in this moment, and it's really special. It's really beautiful to be aware of that. Whereas in the past, I might have continuously regretted the past, or agonized over decisions, while also fretting about the future. Not a pleasant experience, because, of course, that leads to a paralysis of the moment, and you miss out. You know, and you're constantly somewhere else. Whereas bringing your awareness to this moment now is sensational. You know, we're sat having a conversation, and I hope that this is helpful to someone out there that may be going through their own struggles. So yeah, I felt richer than I'd ever been, and more fulfilled than I'd ever been,
and happier,
and a lot happier, joyous,
healthier,
happier. Unexplained bouts of joy that are better than any chemical I might have tried in my life.
And they were just masking what was deep inside.
Temporary as well. They're, you know, a temporary high from a promotion, from a bonus. Yes, I've just got a big bonus. Whoa, wow, I've just signed a big deal. Fantastic. How cool. You ring your mum, you ring your dad, you ring your girlfriend. Looking for a bit of validation, then it kind of wears off, and you're like, well, it's the new normal now. It's just temporary. Whereas being nourished in one's own psyche, one's own soul, is an ongoing process of freedom. So you
founded OSHI then. So tell us a little bit more about OSHI, because OSHI's more than you.
Yes, it is. It is indeed, and that's why I founded OSHI, to start connecting people that can help with people that want help. And I'll give you a little background to the name. I know I explained the OSHI and the acronym. During the first part of the COVID lockdowns, I started a website that never went anywhere. And it was going to be a collection of alternative healing methods. Pre-World War II, old wives' tales and old school remedies before the pharmaceutical industry became globalized. You know, I'd had some success using some alternative remedies and things, you know, when I was really poorly. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to see what's out there. We're all lockdown, I might as well do some research that I wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do. Lockdown finished, back into the volunteering at the hospital and doing the OSHI project. But it wasn't called the OSHI project. It was just me in a hospital helping people. When we were publishing the research, the lead gastroenterologist consultant that I co-authored the work with was on at me for a name. And I just couldn't think of it. I thought Hull for Heroes was a good one. And then I found it was already something, or Heroes of Hull. And I'm like, it's still I just couldn't get one. And she said, if you don't give me something, I'm just going to call it NHS. And I got an email through that night saying your domain name that you'd set up was expiring, and that was OSHI, because I called it the Open Source Healing Initiative. I thought before I give that name, I had better make sure it doesn't mean anything rude in another language. And then I found out that it's the Japanese word for friend that supports. And what was I, if not an OSHI, to people that were still on the ward? So the synchronous beauty in that was how OSHI was born. And the lotus flower came as well, people growing from a dark past and a swamp into a sensationally beautiful flower. So that was how OSHI got its name. I spoke to friends in the community, in the recovery community. There are things like fellowships, like 12-step fellowships, like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, places like that. Spoke to friends in the community about helping me set this up, and got started with an eclectic mix of real people that have been through real things and have real life stories, rich woven tapestries of life experience that uniquely qualify them to help somebody else. With that experience and some willingness to help, you've got magic.
So these people, counsellors, for want of a better word, then is that how you describe them?
These are more like, if you had to think of a real world comparison, it would be like a life coach.
Right.
But we do have counsellors.
Okay.
We have a large team of professional therapeutic counsellors, and we take on more every year. But we also have a large team of OSHIs, which are people.
Is that what you call each other then?
We're called OSHIs.
Okay.
Yeah. That's you're a friend that supports, and we expanded from just alcohol to a multitude of substance misuse areas, a multitude of drugs. People aren't just alcohol or cocaine or heroin. Sometimes there's a whole mixture of things going on.
Do you do cover addictions like gambling as well? Or is it just, okay.
Gambling. We've supported people with eating disorders. People are complex, so we'll have a young lady that comes in with alcohol dependence. We'll speak to her and find her a pathway to connection and support that leads to recovery from alcohol addiction. And then we uncover that actually the alcohol was to mask an underlying eating disorder, and somebody that's gone through alcoholism isn't going to be able to relate to an eating disorder. So then we find someone out there that's got experience of that and connect them, and then we realize actually the eating disorder was symptomatic of a deeper trauma or something that's happened. Hence, we started talking to counsellors to come in and support our work. So yes, we take a holistic view of the individual, and much like I did for corporates back in my career, we now do for human beings. We say, what's going on for you? We talk to them. It's not tick box. It's conversation when we assess people. And OSHI's been designed in a way that fixes and plugs holes left by the system. It's not a criticism of the system. It's just a reality. It's something I fell through. It's something other people fall through. Things like this constant rotating door of never really being able to access support and then being discharged and back to the beginning. So OSHI aim to assess people within 24 hours of asking for help. We don't discharge people. We don't say, you've completed a course for 4 weeks. It's bye. We say it's ongoing. There's no graduation. There's no discharge. This is an ongoing approach to life. And many of our current OSHIs were patients in the hospital 5-6 years ago, whenever it was. It's they're now becoming OSHIs.
And so how is it going as the OSHI organisation? I mean, it sounds like it's growing.
It's growing, yes. There's about 60 of us.
Wow.
And our HQ physically is at C4DI on the marina. But our real HQ is in the hearts, minds and experiences of each individual. If you think about the alchemaic principle of weaving straw into gold.
You've lost me. Go on. There was.
So alchemy
yes.
of turning one material into another.
Yeah, right.
And in the days of King Arthur, they spoke about, we can, use magic to weave things from straw into gold, and some fables around being able to have control over the elements. So if you think of that alchemaic principle, but you instead assign it to human beings and energy, both positive and negative experiences, both positive and negative, what OSHI enables people to do and is a conduit for is someone who's had a painful experience can take that experience and through their own healing journey transmute it into something incredibly positive through supporting somebody else, because suddenly that experience in isolation is quite, why did that happen to me? Now suddenly I'm so grateful for that experience because
I can do something with it.
I can do something with it. It's the currency of life itself is experience, our memories, our experiences that make us who we are, and that transmutation of the negative into the positive fascinates me. And when I see the people that have been broken the deepest, helping people with the most love, it warms my heart in ways that I can't do justice to through articulation. But it's incredible, and OSHI's growing really well. I want to stop you there, because this is obviously a business podcast. So you've founded this very successful organisation, but going back to the commercial side, how are you funding it? Or is this through the NHS, or is this something you're personally, you've got investors? It's a very good question.
Is it one you want to answer?
This may be for a business podcast the right or wrong advice, but we don't charge a penny for what we offer. We believe in the power of people helping people, and I've often asked myself, how am I going to fund this? And I've never ever had to worry about it. It's flowed so naturally, and some people make financial contributions. Some people make me aware of opportunities for research grants from the likes of Unlimited that support social enterprises that have a force for good, like the British Science Association, that are supporting us in our aspirations to develop a digital platform, which is how I first met David, your previous guest, and found my way to C4DI. And it's been a leap of faith. And along the way, money hasn't been a problem, because when people meet me or meet any other OSHI and they see what we're doing, they give of themselves, whether that is a free support legally, whether that is free accounting support. And it doesn't feel free because they're giving of it willingly. That's how they're contributing to the organisation. We pay our rent. We keep growing. We keep getting more and more opportunities. We are working with a large NHS trust. Its details are confidential at the moment, but we're working with a large NHS trust, regional trust, covering millions and millions of people, about launching a project together and becoming part of the clinical pathway, which would lead to hopeful ample resources to continue the work that we do.
So what do you see as the future for OSHI then? Do you see it as being a national service or international maybe even?
Oh, definitely international.
Definitely international.
Yes, absolutely. We see it as we're something new. However, if you compared successful models over the last decade, 2 decades, the likes of Uber, Just Eat, Airbnb, that take existing supply and existing demand and act as a conduit in between. OSHI is very much like that, but the conduit is life experiences being matched with suffering. So there's a lot of scope there, and we were successful in becoming part of an NHS digital accelerator program last year in developing this platform, and it's in beta phase at the moment, but it would be, I suppose, a type of social media recovery incubator of sorts that connects people with people.
Yeah.
And that would be the longer term goal, to automate the connection and find a way to really connect people that need it most at the right time. Well-timed interventions of connection from people to people. So that OSHI's going really well. It's growing rapidly.
The future looks bright.
It does indeed.
Well, congratulations. Let's just think back to that young boy you were describing at the beginning. You've clearly had a remarkable journey, and you're in a much happier place. And it's just lovely to see how you're finding this work that you're doing now so rewarding compared with what you used to do. What advice would you give to that younger version of yourself, looking back now?
This is a real tricky one, because I'm so happy with where I am now that I wouldn't want to change it.
You wouldn't want to change your journey?
No. So in spite of, because if I say yes, I'd give him some advice, that could skew decisions that led me down a path of experiencing what I experienced, taking the huge risks, going the extra mile, being wild, reckless, that came from feeling so uncomfortable as a child. If I whispered in his ear, I'd just tell him he was going to be okay.
Yeah.
I would just say, you're going to be okay, and I am.
Thank you, James. I am just conscious of time, so I just wanted to ask you another question. What do you think's been the best advice you've ever received then during this remarkable journey you've had?
Not often I'm lost for words. I'm going to take a few moments to ponder that.
Yeah, okay.
I think the best advice has been very much linked to taking the time to stop and look at yourself, what it all means, and not just be caught up in chasing. People can get caught up in chasing material. They can get caught up in chasing romance. And often we don't necessarily stop to realize we are running on a series of programs that are automated, which is why the same things upset us over and over again. So stopping and realizing that you're worth investing time and effort to uncover what those programs are in your mind and changing them. Are you fed up with your weight? Are you fed up with your personal situation? Are you fed up of feeling a certain way? And I have totally transformed my life through, it was a series of advice over a period of months, but getting intense therapy and uncovering and rewiring those programs so that I can have an entirely different experience. So for me now, misery is optional. I can choose to suffer, but I don't have to. It's solution-based living. You're in a problem. Okay, you've identified that there's a challenge or something that's uncomfortable. What can you do about it? What are you going to do about it? Do you want to stay in the problem, or do you want to move to the solution? Solution-based living. Okay, I can't change it. Acceptance of that and moving forward. So that wasn't a particular piece of advice, but it was
something you've learned there.
Something I've learned, yes.
It's almost like you're giving yourself permission to choose.
And sometimes in life we forget we have that.
Yeah, we do. We're on this roller coaster. There's this relentless chasing, like you were saying earlier.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
It's the pressure we put on ourselves. We think,
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you, because you have been so open and honest with us, and it's been a fascinating story. I'm delighted to see you in a much happier place, and it's evident by the way you're talking and what you've been through and what you've learned through your journey. So congratulations on making it to this point. There were times when it clearly was touch and go. Well done on everything you've done, and congratulations on the success of OSHI. And I guess its continued growth is a recognition of the power of what it's doing, but also a reflection on how difficult life can be at times. So congratulations. Right, before you go, I want to ask you a question that was left by our previous guest, and you know who it was because we had a chat about it earlier. But he didn't know at the time who was leaving the question for. It's not related to anything that we've talked about today, so it's a bit left field. The question he left was, what's the first record you ever bought and the best gig you've ever been to? And now you know who the guest was, you probably think, I can see how he asked that.
The first, it wasn't a record, it was a CD.
You see, he's showing his age.
It was Bop by Hanson.
Oh dear.
Yes,
Okay.
I was about 12 or 13 and I found it really, really catchy, and I thought, I'm gonna be grown up and buy myself a CD. So the best gig I've ever been to, that is an interesting question.
Are you a gig goer?
Not really.
Or is there a gig you'd like to go to that if you could?
Yes. I'd very much like to see Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash maybe doing some kind of duet on stage. Yeah, I saw during the peak of both of their, I didn't see it personally, I saw some clips where Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley both mimicked each other on stage because they were both growing in popularity in a similar era. So I'd like to see a gig with those two together on stage.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I wasn't anticipating that answer, but thank you. And thanks again for your time this morning, James. Right, that's it for this month. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to get in touch, please do so via our normal social channels, and we will see you again next month. And until then, bye-bye.